So, what do we know about radiation? Normally we have three different types of radiation. This is alpha radiation, beta radiation, and gamma radiation. But alpha and beta are particles. They do not travel very long distances. And how about gamma? Gamma is similar to the light. It can go through the bodies. So alpha and beta are particles, but they are dangerous if they are digested or inhaled in the bodies. So when the disaster happened, many isotopes were released into the atmosphere, and obviously talking about what could cause such a global disaster, till now we have the debates on this subject, who's to be blamed. But nevertheless, at that moment, they said, nothing dangerous had happened, and they, after all, they blamed Dyatlov for everything, for the Chernobyl disaster. So, and actually the Chernobyl disaster caused the release of the isotopes into the atmosphere, and it caused the global problem. The whole radius of the Chernobyl exclusion zone is 2,600 square kilometers, and after it was divided into a couple of subzones, like for instance the 10-kilometer zone and the 30-kilometer zone, people were evacuated from the 10-kilometer zone. So till present days, the 10-kilometer zone is uninhabitable. Unfortunately, people are not allowed to live over there. And what about the rest? What about the town of Chernobyl? So those people who were evacuated from the 30-kilometer zone, some of them were allowed to even return. So some of them returned already in 3 months after the Chernobyl disaster. Some of them returned in half of a year after the Chernobyl disaster. But people could not leave their motherland. They could not leave they could not leave the place where they grew up. Of course, for them it would be difficult, because at that moment they would have to change their lifestyle. They would have to change everything in their life. And obviously, once the reactor exploded and all the people were evacuated, it was a difficult situation even in Ukraine. It was the difficult situation all over the world. But nevertheless, people continued to decontaminate the area, and they even said that some people would continue to live in Pripyat. As you know, Pripyat was built for workers of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, and it was built actually in couple of because the nuclear power plant they started to build in 1970. In 1970, they started to build the whole site of the nuclear power plant. They started, like this already told you, measures 2,600 square kilometers, and it's absolutely overgrown. You know that 70% of the Chernobyl exclusion zone is covered with dense forest. A long time ago, only 40% of the whole Chernobyl exclusion zone was covered with dense forest. But present days, actually, more than 70% of the whole area is covered with a dense forest. And as I said, many people continue to live in there, and they continue to live their normal life. So normally, when we have a tour to the Chernobyl exclusion zone, so the first thing that you get to see is, of course, the checkpoint of Detyatki. The checkpoint of Detyatki used to be one of the villages evacuated. For the people, it would be the best solution. For the people, it would be the best variant for them not to get exposed to the radiation, because radiation is dangerous if it's digested or inhaled in the bodies. Yes, hello. Yeah, hello everybody. So I'm happy to see all you here. Hello. Hello from Canada. Hello. So, of course, we've organized this online tour for you, ladies and gentlemen, just for you to know more information about the Chernobyl disaster, just for you to know more about the accident. And I would love to I would love to kindly ask you to ask questions if you have any questions about the Chernobyl disaster, because we know it's quite, it's quite popular to ask questions. We've checked it in our Instagram, and we found out that you really enjoyed this kind of a quest we've made. So, hello from Spain. Hello, hello. Hello, everybody. So, the first thing that you will usually get to see during the tour to the Chernobyl exclusion zone is the checkpoint of Detatki. The checkpoint of Detatki used to be a village. It used to be a village in the areas around. We are going to see them virtually. So, hello. The people are not allowed to go in, and the self-settlers who live in the area, some of them were evacuated from some of the villages. The fire was around their hometown, but the firemen have been trying to struggle with the fires, and we really hope they made ditches to prevent the spread of the fire, and we are hoping for the good results of all these operations, of the liquidation of this wildfire, unfortunately. But the problem of the fire is a seasonal problem, and we have to cope with this problem annually. So, yeah, hi from France, from COVID now hospital. COVID recovering slowly in progress. Hope the wooden fire will be under control. Yes, we really hope that the wooden fire will be under control, and it will be under control. So, are you actually hello guy, hello from Mexico? I hear Kapachi kindergarten is okay. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, kindergarten is one of the the Kapachi. Actually, the word Kapachi comes from the word diggers, or those who dig the ground. And yes, Kapachi are okay, absolutely fine. And the kindergarten was one of the burial sites after the Chernobyl disaster. They have made the burial site from Kapachi, and actually, it's very important. It's very important to keep Kapachi safe, and Kapachi remains safe. Obviously. Hello from Argentina. Hello. Hello, Maurice. Hello from Milan. Sorry, Christian. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would love to continue telling you about the Chernobyl disaster, obviously, and you have a chance to ask me all the questions you'd like to know about the Chernobyl disaster. So, obviously, hi from Brazil. I was in Chernobyl in January this year, and I'm so sad to know about the fires. Yes, we are also very, very sad to know about fires, and it's very difficult, especially for us, for the tour guides, because we spent a lot of time. In Chernobyl, and personally, I can give the tours like 4-5 times a week, and for us, it's so difficult to see all those pictures. But nevertheless, we are proud to say that firemen are really trying to struggle with all these fires, and they are really doing this successfully. So hopefully soon it will be okay. Everything will be fine. So as I said, the 30-kilometer zone. Yeah, the first checkpoint, the first spot. The first spot, obviously, we get to see when we go to Chernobyl is the checkpoint of Detatki, and then obviously we get to see the town of Chernobyl. The town of Chernobyl is as the administrative center, and it used to be the administrative center. People continue to work in the town of Chernobyl, and They actually continued to live in the town of Chernobyl. There is a church, by the way. Back then churches were not something like, they didn't really it's hard to control. It's hard to control the country if people believe in something, right? So religion was not really popular back in the day. Do I need to throw the clothes away after the tour? So actually, it's absolutely safe to go to Chernobyl, and you don't have to do that. Why? Because we follow the prescribed route, and we have the prescribed route. We have the restrictions in the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Obviously, we need to follow some safety rules. And due to our safety rules, we are not allowed to touch accurate things. We are not allowed to do an accurate amount of things. But in general, you don't have to throw away your shoes. You don't have to throw away your clothes. You can absolutely, you won't glow in dark, It's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine. You can use your clothes. How long is the tour? So the tour to the Chernobyl exclusion zone normally takes 12 hours. Why? I will explain. Because if you go to the Chernobyl exclusion zone, the drive to the Chernobyl exclusion zone, since it is actually 120 kilometers from the capital, from Kiev, it takes some time to get there. And of course, our drivers are very professional. Those who have been to Ukraine understand what I mean. They follow the speed limits. So usually it takes around I should have been there with you now, but I guess this is the next best thing. Yeah, thank you so much. Are we actually getting shown around, or it's just telling us about the tour? Greetings from Montreal. Yes, obviously we are going to go there virtually. So, what about dogs? So the dogs, yes, the dogs in Chernobyl. After the accident, many dogs were simply, unfortunately, many dogs were simply killed. They were happy to see. People. When all the people were evacuated, all the people, for instance, from Pripyat, they were evacuated in 36 hours after the Chernobyl disaster, and when the police officers were returning back to kill the dogs, they were really happy to see those people, and unfortunately many animals were killed. But nevertheless, animals recolonized the area, and honestly speaking, there are loads of animals in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, including dogs. In total, there are around 300 dogs in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, and there is even a nice American organization called Clear Futures Fund, and they really take care of the dogs, and all the dogs were neutered and neutralized. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, right now we are in the very heart of the Chernobyl exclusion zone. We are in the town of Chernobyl and the exclusion zone. And as I said, the Chernobyl exclusion zone was divided into a couple of subzones. The first one was the 10-kilometer zone, and one more was the 30-kilometer zone. The 30-kilometer area is a buffer zone between the relatively normal Ukraine and of course that contaminated area. So basically the Chernobyl nuclear power plant is located for 70% only. If we're talking about southern part of the exclusion zone, it was contaminated for 20% only. Northern part was contaminated for 100%, and 60% of the initial fallout landed right in Belarus. In Belarus, there is also an exclusion zone, but many people know about the exclusion zone of Ukraine. But mainly people are unaware of the exclusion zone of Belarus. 96 villages were evacuated from Ukraine, but 92 were evacuated from Belarus. We started the decontamination from the from the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Of course, it was important for us to continue to use the reactors because of the shortage of electricity in Ukraine. And you will be surprised, but people continued to work at the nuclear power plant. Even after the Chernobyl disaster, they continued to work. Of course, the reactor that exploded on the 26th of April in 1986 was reactor number 4. And there were 3 more reactors that continued to generate electricity after the Chernobyl disaster, and people continued to work over there. So right now we are going to travel a little bit. So if you can see, yeah, the facility in front of us. So actually this facility is the museum dedicated to the Chernobyl disaster. Once over there was a cinema. So-called Cinema Ukraine. But you know what, present days people don't really need any cinemas in the Chernobyl exclusion zone. So at present days people don't really need any cinemas in there. Obviously the cinema was made for the museum dedicated to the Chernobyl disaster. A long time ago, 12,000 people used to live in the town of Chernobyl. At present days, only 4,000. You will be surprised, but people continue to live. And if you pay your attention on your left, you can see the buildings, many buildings over here. People continue to live in these buildings. Mainly as they use them like dormitories. All of them were remained for dormitories. So right over here you can see the memorial dedicated to the liquidators. Liquidators are people. Actually, the word liquidator comes from the word to liquidate or to overcome the consequences of the Chernobyl disaster. On your left, you can see actually people who were trying to check the rate of radiation near the reactor number 4. And on your right, you can see 4 persons. So these 4 persons are firemen. Firemen who, you know, officially they said that only 31 persons died because of the Chernobyl disaster. Unofficially, more than 500,000. Because people were dying daily, monthly, and annually. So next to the memorial, you can see the fire station. Fire station which is still in use. Honestly speaking, those firemen who had to extinguish the fire, obviously they didn't come from this fire station, because there was also one more fire station in front of the nuclear power plant itself. Yes, this tour will be through Google Maps. How many villages were buried after the disaster? Well, honestly speaking, many villages were buried, well, in total, from the territory of Belarus, there were 92 villages evacuated. From the territory of Ukraine, there were 96 villages evacuated. Well, at present days, only some of them are inhabitable. Only 5, maybe 6 of them are inhabitable. Where did a private tour? We did a private tour last April. Amazing trip. I'm due to edit my video footage soon, finally. Yes, that's great. You know, it's always better to see once than to listen 100 times. So, and now, ladies and gentlemen, you can see Kopachi. So you were asking about Kopachi. Kopachi actually is translated like diggers, or those who dig the ground. And people who used to live in Kopachi, they had to literally hide everything under the ground. In Kopachi, there were more than 300 hotspots. A hotspot is a place with a concentration of the contaminated dust or concentration of radiation. So, and now we are going to approach closer. we're going to approach closer to the Chernobyl nuclear power plant itself. Wow, now I can see what you were talking about on Instagram. Great, great. I actually set an alarm for this transmission. I guess expectations were too high. Well, honestly speaking, that you know that because of the fires, people are unfortunately not allowed to visit the 30-kilometer zone, and people are not allowed to visit the 10-kilometer zone, especially. Even the media, even the journalists are not allowed to go there. So I watched the romance movie Chernobyl about two teenagers who have chosen to stay in the empty city like a fairy tale. At the beginning, not at the end. I kept this movie in Russian. Why they haven't made a European Memorial Day in honor for liquidators? So honestly speaking, on the 26th of April, we have the Memorial Day. We have the Memorial Day even at schools. Usually kids have this fake evacuation, and they usually have this fake evacuation when they hear the alarm, as they leave their school, and they gather together in a schoolyard to get practicing how to put on and take off the gas masks. And we still do practice this. Hello, Pripyat. Can you tell me please in total how many people died in Chernobyl after their deaths? What happened to them? So, you remember the rumors about the thyroid cancer? Actually, thyroid cancer is caused by iodine. Iodine 131. Iodine 131 is one of the isotopes we got we got from the disintegration of some isotopes. The iodine 131 needs only 8 days to disintegrate. So that means that in 8 days after the Chernobyl disaster, it was already kind of safer to go to the Chernobyl exclusion zone. And of course, people had to take the pills, iodine pills. So this helped them to prevent cancer. But at that moment, the problems they had, that would be some problems with lungs, heart attacks, or some other problems. You know, at present days, it's difficult to estimate the scope of the Chernobyl disaster, because we can only, estimate very, very subjectively. Till present days, we have the debates on this subject, but nobody knows the numbers. As they say, due to the healthcare organization, more than 500,000 people died. But it's a very discussive question. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can see all these reactors. See, in front of us, you can see all these reactors. Reactor number 1 was launched in 7 years after they started to build the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Reactor number 2 was launched in 1978. Reactor number 3 was launched in 1981, and reactor number 4, it was launched in 1984. So, and if we do a little, small calculation, so we can say that the reactor number 4 generated electricity for 2 years only, and then it exploded. Hello Victoria, un member from Paris. Peut-être la question a déjà été posée, mais suite au fait de forêt et aux radiations élevées, est-ce que c'est risque de visiter Chernobyl? You can reply in English. So, ladies and gentlemen, obviously, for now, yeah, we can say that it's a little bit risky to go to the Chernobyl exclusion zone because of the fire itself. It's always dangerous because of the fire. But nevertheless, after all the fire, after the situation with the fire is down, yeah. So it will be okay to visit the Chernobyl exclusion zone, because the isotopes are very, very deep inside of the ground. So it will be Absolutely, absolutely fine. Hopefully it will be okay soon. When authorities allow, will you be doing tours inside? Yes, inside the new safe confinement. Yes, it's very interesting to visit the new safe confinement, and of course, those feelings when you are inside of the new safe confinement, it's something special. It's something you cannot even describe. You need to feel that. And how about the radiation in there? So if the rate of the radiation, for instance, right now in my room is 0.13 microsieverts, then the rate of the radiation near the new safe confinement, near the new safe confinement, is around 1.5 microsieverts. After they put the old sarcophagus, the rate of the radiation went down, and actually inside of the new safe confinement, the rate of the radiation is, the closer you are, the higher is the rate of the radiation, but nevertheless it's around 18 microsieverts per hour. So if right now my Geiger counter is showing 0.13, there it's 18 microsieverts per hour. So here you can see the new safe confinement itself. So the new safe confinement was put in its position in 2016. And Sevilla's kindergarten in Kopachi is safe, but it was closed. Oh, you speak French so lovely. Thank you so much. Yes, the heat brings the contaminated particles in the air. Yes, exactly. Thanks. Okay. So, where are you showing the tour? YouTube link does not work in Spain. So, actually, you can go through our Facebook page, and right over there you can find a link, and you can use this link. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, talking about the town that was built, usually the most interesting part of the tour is the town of Pripyat. The town of Pripyat, as I said, was specifically built for the workers of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. And actually, it existed for 16 years only. And those people who were evacuated, they had to leave everything behind their backs. Unfortunately, they were not able to return. And if you pay your attention to this picture, you can see the difference. Yeah, the road sign of Pripyat and the date. You can see the date, 1970. 1970 is the year of foundation. Actually, the rate of the radiation, if we, for instance, stay here, yeah, so the rate of the radiation here will be quite normal, because people were trying to decontaminate Pripyat. They had been trying to decontaminate Pripyat even till 1988. And next picture that you can see demonstrates you the breach of death. If you remember from HBO TV series, there was a breach of death, and as they said, the breach of death was the place where people were able to stay and to watch the radioactive cloud coming out. Actually, honestly speaking, it's just the rumors. Because imagine, the accident happened, it was late night, it was 1:24, and of course people would be sleeping at that period of time. Okay, is someone lives in Chernobyl right now or not? 4,000 people. 4,000 people live in Chernobyl, And these are workers of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, and these are people who returned after the Chernobyl disaster. And talking about workers, they usually work on the shifts. The first shift is 4 and 3. During 4 days, they stay in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, and 3 days they are out of the Chernobyl exclusion zone. So basically, they leave the Chernobyl exclusion zone. And one more shift is 15-15. So they stay for 15 days, like within 15 days, they stay in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, and 15 days they are out of the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Those people who work there, they live in the apartments. So basically, in one apartment they can live a fireman. In a neighbor room, there can live a police officer, and they might not even know each other. I have to wait for medical evening visit. Take care and stay safe. I hope to fight back the COVID and biological liquidators. In 2 weeks, stay confined. Do you believe that the WHO failed to report on the health effects of Chernobyl and failed to complete its reports on children and liquidator death? What is the radiation in the Reactor 4? Well, in the Reactor 4 we can count in sieverts, obviously. 1000 microsieverts, it's 1 millisievert. 1000 millisieverts, it's sievert. And in the reactor, even despite the fact that at present days it looks like the ash, but it's still highly radioactive. You can count in sieverts. Basically, 4 sieverts, it's a little dose. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. We are in Pripyat. This is the main square, so-called Boulevard Lenina. So if you pay your attention, in front of us you can see the community center, and on your yeah, we're going to approach closer. Do you have any real photos of what the view from the Bridge of Death looked like? Well, honestly speaking, the view, everything is absolutely overground. A long time ago, the Chernobyl exclusion zone was covered with a dense forest for only 40%. It was basically, let us say, southwestern part of the Chernobyl exclusion zone. So southern part is the area where the Chernobyl nuclear power plant is located, and western part is the area where the radar station is located, the Russian woodpecker, well-known Russian woodpecker. So it was like overground, but at present days 70% of the whole area is overground. You know, people were planting the trees. It was one of the operations of decontamination. They were taking, like, because the tree is like a filter. It's like a filter for the radiation, because it takes out the radiation. It takes the radiation out from the ground, and it's actually it's like a natural filter. So the first stage of the decontamination was to change the contaminated soil. Yeah, so they were taking the contaminated soil and they were putting the normal soil. Also, they were changing the asphalt covering. And do you have any real photos? I read that on the evening of the explosion there were no people on the Bridge of Death. Exactly. Everything that was showed in HBO TV series, it was just created by created just to make it more, you know, exciting. Because again, imagine, people were sleeping, it was a late night, there was nothing but the fire, and the fire would not be visible from the town itself. So, ladies and gentlemen, in front of us you can see the Hotel Polisa, and you can see me. You can see me holding a picture of the Hotel Polisa. The Hotel Polisa was one of the best hotels in the town of Pripyat, and actually it was, I would say, it was the only one hotel. The rest were dormitories. But Pripyat was a kind of a model town. it was actually it was created for the people to show off, to show that they were better than the others, and only the bigwigs, so-called bigwigs of the society, were able to live in the town of Pripyat. Best medical workers, best engineers, just the best of the best. And I'm proud to all of you who's working for Chernobyl, for all workers, people who die for Chernobyl, especially for firemen. Thank you so much for this. So, and also you can see a lot of, like, you can see the difference, yeah? So right now Pripyat is absolutely overgrown. The Hotel Polisa, it's written the Hotel Polisa, and if you look at the picture that I'm holding in my hands, you can see rose bushes. 36,000 rose bushes were simply planted by the citizens of Pripyat. And probably the most iconic picture you will come through the internet. So here it is, the Ferris wheel. And the amusement park that was supposed to be opened on the 1st of May, and it was never opened, actually. Unfortunately, those kids, imagine the feelings of those kids who were watching the amusement park being built, and then they had to be evacuated, and those kids were evacuated actually to the Crimea, and their parents were evacuated different direction, and there was a separation. Like, for instance, imagine you are a surgeon, and he's a surgeon, so you go into his house and you say, come on, I'm gonna live in your house, and you can't refuse because it's communism. Everything belongs to the society. You cannot refuse, and you have to treat this person good. So in here you can see the famous picture of the bumper cars. Again, the amusement park that was supposed to be opened, that was due to be opened on the 1st of actually May. You know, usually it was like something special, yeah. If you do something special, you obviously do this on some kind of a holiday, and there is a festival, you celebrate, and it's like so emotional and so exciting. People are waiting for the festival, people are waiting for the holiday, and here we go, the amusement park and everything. So now you can see the picture of the riverport. Well, you can see the difference, yeah, the nature is taking over and over. And the picture of the same riverport, you can see how overcrowded it would be. And you know, when the accident happened, this riverport was closed. It was simply closed. People were not allowed to leave the town, and maybe theoretically only by giving the bribe you would actually leave the town, before they decided what to do with those people who had been exposed to the radiation. And you know, those firemen who were the first to come to struggle with the consequences of the Chernobyl disasters, they were sent to the hospital. After that, they felt, first of all, yeah, the first symptom of radiation is like nausea, and then the radiation affects eyes, the radiation affects skin, and people can feel this nausea. And the rumors they were telling, yeah, the things they were telling, that if you get exposed to radiation, you can feel the taste of lead. Well, actually, it's not really like this, because the taste of lead people would probably taste because of the operations of liquidation, because people like pilots had to stay in the accurate distance, and the liquidators had to drop bags with sand, lead, with some boring to struggle with the fire itself, to cope with the fire. And probably this taste of lead was the dust brought by the wind, because 60% of the whole town of Pripyat was badly polluted with the dust. And that's why there was a version to decontaminate Pripyat and to bring people back in there. So theoretically, they would decontaminate the Pripyat, but it was impossible because if you live there, you will give a birth to a child, and there were loads of hotspots, loads of contaminated places. So they realized in 2 years after they realized that it was impossible to decontaminate Pripyat. But nevertheless, the very interesting fact that you will hardly find somewhere through the internet is that people continue to live in Pripyat. These were already liquidators who had to, for instance, workers of the Jupiter factory. This was the second most employed factory, or maybe those liquidators who had to decontaminate the area. So they continued to leave. So-called, they had the shifts, and they were even planting the vegetation in the greenhouses. Like, it was like, in my opinion, it sounds a little bit, a little bit strange, but nevertheless, back then, people did not realize that radiation was something, or maybe they were just committed to the place where they used to work, or maybe they felt responsible, or some kind of So the final picture I would love to show you. You can see how it used to look like. Yeah, this is a very famous school number 3. School number 3 with the kids' gas masks. Yeah, if you remember from the pictures. Yeah. Oh, there are some questions. Did some workers still live in the town of Pripyat for some time after the disaster? When was the swimming pool in use and built? So, you know that the very interesting fact is that the swimming pool, usually you can come across the pictures of the swimming pool. Yeah, the swimming pool, like a massive swimming pool. It looks like from the horror movie. Actually, the swimming pool was in use until 1996, and it's a very interesting fact. There was a tennis court, there were 2 swimming pools, the smaller one and the bigger one, and also there was a kind of a basketball ground and sauna. So, and people continued to use that swimming pool. Why? Probably, it was really very difficult for them to work in the atmosphere like this one, and they had to have something to entertain themselves. Moreover, I will tell you, in the community center, there was, for these purposes, there was actually the boxing ring built. Is Lada for rent? Yeah. Yeah, Lada is for rent, by the way. So you can actually, if you want to have a kind of a special tour, a retro tour, and dive into the atmosphere of USSR, you can rent Lada, and you can go to Chernobyl by Lada to feel the atmosphere of USSR by Lada, because Ladas were really kind of, it was something special. We cannot, at present days for us it's difficult to understand, but Lada, it was something special back in the day. It would cost $5,000. Imagine, the average salary is $120, and dollar was equal to ruble, and even ruble was even better than dollar, and $120 you got a salary. Yeah, you receive a salary, and Lada costs $5,000, and then you have this $5,000, and you go to the seller and you say, man, today I'm like the happiest one. I can buy my Lada. And he says, no, you can't. Just apply for the car and wait for a couple more years, and then you'll be able to get your car. There were not many of them actually produced back in the day, and it was something special. It was something unique. If you, as we usually say, if you own Lada, you own the world. Can you stay in Chernobyl or Pripyat overnight? So if you well, you can stay in Chernobyl overnight. Basically, if you do a 2-day tour, you stay in Chernobyl overnight, and there is a nice hotel in the town of Chernobyl, and also the 2-day tour allows you to spend more time actually in the 10-kilometer zone, and obviously you will be able to stay in Chernobyl overnight. Well, what happened to their homes, clothes, things? Well, this is a good question. What happened to those homes, clothes, and things? So, ladies and gentlemen, honestly speaking, if you visit Pripyat once, you will be impressed. Impressed, it's not the right word. Actually, you will be shocked. Yeah, it's better to say you will be shocked. Why? Because everything is like it looks like after apocalypse, and it looks like after apocalypse, and all the windows are broken, and you can hardly find some sofas. It's not the same like you return back home. Why? Because of the operations of decontamination. The liquidators had to throw away all the contaminated stuff. Imagine the situation. It was a very, very popular decoration back in the day, like carpets, yeah? So people would have their carpets made of fur, for instance. Carpets on the walls, carpets on the floors, maybe on the ceilings, who knows? So, and they would have these carpets everywhere, and you walk through the street, and you don't know about like how dangerous it is to walk in there, and you don't know about it, and you walk through the street, and you bring the radiation, you bring dust on you, because the most dangerous part of all this was not the uranium itself, yeah, not the fire burning. The most dangerous part of all this was the dust. The dust, it would pollute all the town, and it would pollute all the world, actually. Not that radioactive plume that went to drift. So, the liquidators had to check. First of all, they were checking with the mobile instruments. Yeah, they were calling them dosimeters. So there is a difference between this dosimeter, yeah, so we usually use in our tours, and the dosimeters people were using. They were like mobile dosimeters. And with the special equipment, they would go and they would check all the apartment blocks, and they would check all the pieces of furniture. They would check literally everything. And if it was found out that something was contaminated, they would take all the stuff, and just to save time, they would destroy the windows, and they would throw away from the windows. The man who recently passed, who stayed after the accident, I forgot his name. Do your tours show where his property is? Yes, you probably mean Ivan Ivanovich. We feel really very, very sorry for Ivan Ivanovich, because he's actually he's like a part of, like, you know, he used to be a part of our life, and you know, for us, for the tour guides, it's a very touching moment. It was very sad to realize that this person passed away, because usually when it's a 2-day tour, we visit self-settlers, and we do prefer to visit them, because some people say that it's better not to disturb them, like, don't go there, don't disturb them. You know how tough is the life without people around. Some of the villages in the Chernobyl exclusion zone are like, the population of these villages is like 2 persons or maybe 3 persons, and when they see us, their eyes are filled with with the hope, and they are really happy to see us. And especially when we come with the big groups of people, and we talk, we are interested to learn, to know their history, like to know their story, yeah. And some of them are really related to the Chernobyl disaster. For instance, Maria, I usually visit in Chernobyl. She's a very nice lady. She used to be a cleaning lady in when the accident happened, and her husband died, and she lives alone, and her actually son lives quite a while from Chernobyl. So it's difficult. And talking about Ivan Ivanovich, yes, we can see his house. We used to come, and we used to communicate. We really loved listening to his stories. He was a very easygoing person. He really loved sharing his stories, and he had a very nice car in his garage, and he would be really happy to show us his car, and he was really happy to tell loads of stories. And yes, it was really nice. And actually, if we go, for instance, if you decide on the tour that you would love to see his property, theoretically it's possible to see, because there is still one self-settler whose name is Babushka Dunya. She's a very also nice lady. We sometimes we visit her. So if you decide to go to Chernobyl, you will be able, and if you decide to join a 2-day tour or a private tour, you will be able to obviously see his property. So I'm so glad we got to meet him last year in June with Pasha. So sad. Yes, it's a very sad story, and yeah, he's like he was a very nice person. He was a great person, and I remember my first tour to the Chernobyl exclusion zone, and I visited Ivan Ivanovich, and I was so impressed, and I can understand your feelings. Nice talking to you. Thank you so much. Very nice lady. We met her on our tour in 2017. Very nice lady. Well, there are lots of self-settlers living in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, honestly speaking, and there would be some. I mean, we visit people in Kupovate, we visit people in Parashit, we visit people, let us say, in Chernobyl, we visit people in Apachichi. Actually, I remember I had a tour with 3 Norwegians who had a tour. They basically wanted to have a self-settlers tour. So and it was really nice. They bought like big, really massive bags with food, and we went to different villages to visit the self-settlers, like coming and say like, hello, we brought some food for you, and let's like communicate. And they were so happy to see us, and they were so happy to share their stories. And yes, it's so important not to forget about these people. So he sounds like an amazing man. Sorry, but there was shame I didn't get to meet him. Well, very nice lady, we met her. Yep. So, and nice knowing Chernobyl. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's it's a part of our history, and we really need to remember about the Chernobyl disaster. We really need to remember about this place, and it's a very important place. And we it's a different feeling. It's a different feeling when you go there. it's a different feeling when you go there, and obviously. I would really recommend going to Chernobyl to everyone who is interested in going to Chernobyl, because, as I said, it's a part of the history. It's a story not to be forgotten. And my next visit will be a 2-day tour. Can you compare Chernobyl and Fukushima? You know. Honestly speaking, Chernobyl disaster and Fukushima, even despite the fact that scientists estimate of the same level, the nuclear disaster. In our case, it was not the nuclear disaster. It was a steam explosion, because as for the nuclear disaster, the temperature of the fuel itself was relatively low. It was 1,200 degrees Celsius. As for the steam explosion, yes, the temperature was quite high. So if we start to talk about the reactors themselves, so the reactors outside, they looked quite square. Inside, they were cylinder-shaped structures. And sometimes people compare the Chernobyl disaster to the kettle, because there was a lot of steam, and the cover of the Chernobyl reactor jumped up into the air. So talking about Fukushima, yes, Fukushima was actually better to say nuclear disaster, and honestly speaking, these two accidents cannot be comparable, because the scope of the Chernobyl disaster was way bigger. We did not have any shelter structures. They said that the Chernobyl reactors were as safe that they would even be set up on the Red Square. And saves the money. I should have had a 2-day tour in March, but had to fly home instead. I'm so sorry. I really feel very sorry for those people who had to cancel the tours, and we are really, really very thankful to those who postponed their tours. And yes, it's a very, very sad story with this closing, with this situation with COVID. But at least we have something positive in it. Due to the statistics, 99% will not get the virus, right? Hi, on Google Images, I saw a little red forest that was by the town sign 1970. Is it still around? So, ladies and gentlemen, about Red Forest. So, Red Forest was a territory near the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, surrounding the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. And it was a massive territory. When the wind blew, western part, the dust covered the woods. And all the woods, all the trees that were mainly pine trees, they turned red, literally ginger brown color. And it looked like, back then, it was a quick autumn, but because it started to get dry. But nevertheless, all those trees had to be shaved, had to be cut down. Why? Because they were highly contaminated. And there is a special territory where all the trees were buried. Actually, there were 11 burial sites. Unofficially, more than 1,000 burial sites. So people would simply take the contaminated stuff. They would drive a couple of hundreds meters, and they would dig out the ditch, and they would cover it with the soil. So, of course, there were special burial sites for the trees. Of course, there were special burial sites for the nuclear materials. Like, for instance, we have Reactor. Reactor is a special burial site for the nuclear materials. And it was built already after the Chernobyl disaster. Also, also Rasoha, for instance. Yeah, you probably can come across the pictures of Rasoha. There are loads of them through the internet, and like barrel site of all the vehicles, helicopters, and everything. So Rasoha is a special territory. Used to be the village, became a burial site, and same Kopachi. Yeah, this is a territory of the burial site. Also Burakivka. So Burakivka basically looks like a field. You can hardly understand unless you know that there is something like that there is something radioactive. I mean, it's not a place. It's not a place where you can find like loads of trees or something like this. But you can differ it from the woods. But nevertheless, it's just a territory. Underneath, they have a couple of layers. One layer of clay, one more layer of these contaminated materials, and one more layer of clay for the particles not to seep down, obviously. So he meant red fox, not red forest. Red fox. Red fox. Yes, red fox. Well, honestly speaking, a lot of animals recolonized the Chernobyl exclusion zone. There are many of them there, and horses Przhevalsky, foxes, lynx, boars, European bisons, elephants. Joking. Of course, I'm joking. But nevertheless, there are loads of wild animals in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, especially foxes. And you know, they are kind of very friendly, and I've never heard of the situation when the fox or a wolf or a wild horse attacked a tourist. So, still happy to hear about the red forest, though. Thank you so much. Okay, so I was really happy to see you all here, and thank you very much for joining this tour. And I would like to say we will be waiting for you on our next tours to the Chernobyl exclusion zone, and we hope that the situation with virus will calm down and everything will be absolutely great. So can't wait to see you. Looking forward. And the wild fox, it looked really funny, and was surprised to see so many people taking pics with it. Thank you for this. Can't wait to take a tour soon. Thanks so much for the tour. Yes, thank you very much for staying with us. And sorry for these technical problems. This is actually our first time we give the online tour. Hopefully next time will be better. Is there a chance of walk-through online tour once you can go back in the zone? Yes, there is a chance. Honestly speaking, there is a chance, and we're thinking of an online tour, a real online tour. Unfortunately, it won't be possible to visit all the areas because the service is not very good in Chernobyl. But nevertheless, where it's possible, we will try to give you the online tour as soon as it's possible. So you will be able to go through the areas of Chernobyl. But for now, unfortunately, because we can't visit the area because of the fires, it's a bit dangerous. We used a chance to go through the Google Maps. Can't wait to book the tour. Yes, that would be really, really awesome. Big thanks from Finland. Yes, thank you so much. Say hi to Pasha. Very interesting, thank you. Is there a chance of... thank you very much, I hope it... Thank you, Дякую, Vika. Thank you for this. If I did a private tour when there is a hospital possible to go in? Shh, don't tell anybody. So sad about Emerald summer camp. Oh yes, it's very sad. It's very sad. Yes, about this children's summer camp. Obviously, yeah, it burned to the ashes, unfortunately, but we won't be able to see it again. Thank you, Vikushka. Is Slavutic an option to stay over on multi-day tour, taking the train? Yes, there is an option to stay. There is an option to stay in Slavutic, obviously, and if you decide to join, for instance, a 2-day tour as an option, it's possible to arrange. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much for staying. Okay. See you on our tour to the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Bye bye.
Что ты пластик